Not. Good evening. There we go. Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Mills River Planning Board. Before we get started tonight, we have an order of business that is not on the agenda. We have two new members with us tonight, Mr. Joe Elliott and Mr. Lonnie Oliver. Welcome to you guys. We appreciate your desire to serve with us, but we need to swear you in before you can actually participate in our meeting tonight. So I'm going to let Arlie Taylor, our tax collector, go through the motions with you.
I'm gonna put this here so you can put your hand on the Bible. You will repeat after me. When I say I, I'll pause and you guys say your names.
Together.
Together.
Do you want me to-
Yeah. I
Joe Elliott,
Lonnie Oliver,
do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof,
and
I
be
will
faithful
faithfully
and
bear
bear allegiance to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are may be established for the government thereof,
and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God.
and
that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God.
I
Joe Elliott,
Lonnie Oliver,
further solemnly swear that I will execute the office of planning board member for the town of Mills River, North Carolina, without prejudice, favor, affection, or partiality, to the best of my skill and ability, so help me
further solemnly swear that I will execute the office of planning board member for the town of Mills River, North Carolina, without prejudice, favor, affection, or partiality, to the best of my skill and ability, so help me God.
God. If you could at some point tonight sign where it says planning board member, return it to me.
Okay.
I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. If you will just please remain standing and the rest of us will join you for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. So at this time, I would entertain any adjustments or additions to tonight's agenda. I would presume that is none. So we will move on to approval of the minutes. Each of you received an electronic copy of the minutes from August 17th and have had time to read through that. Are there any changes that you need to note for those minutes? And if there are no changes, I'd like a motion to approve those.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes.
Okay, there is a motion to approve the minutes from Jim. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Heath. All in favor? Aye. That was unanimous. Okay, now we come into our time of public comment. Is there any public comment that was signed up for over there? I didn't look.
I didn't have any orally, did you?
Is there a sign on the sign-in sheet? No. Okay. No public comment. We're breezing right through that part. We have no old business, so we'll breeze right through that part as well. We do have a pretty full agenda tonight for new business. And so our first order of business tonight is commercial subdivision M-21-05 from Pardee Partners. So I'm going to let Mike just kind of give us the briefing on that, and then I'm sure we will hear from some others.
Yeah, we
Move
do have
forward.
representatives of the developer here, both Jared Ryder from WGLA Engineering, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, but from Pardee Health.
Right, I'm Walter Parker, I'm general counsel at Pardee.
Great. So they can chime in after I'm done with my staff report and answer any detailed questions. So the town received a zoning permit application in April for a new approximately 15,000 square foot ASC center, which is ambulatory surgery center, for the property directly southeast of Ingalls Market, across Boylston Highway. There's no address assigned currently. And then we also received a commercial subdivision application at the beginning of August. Now, although the proposal only creates one new lot, the existing parcel is about 20 acres, and the proposed plan for subdivision subdivides out about 3 1/3 acre. Any new subdivision that has a proposed commercial element has to come before the planning board for review and approval. So that's why we're here tonight. So the plan for subdivision, again, 3 acre parcel, including a new 50-foot private right-of-way for the ASC center. I'm happy to answer any questions about the subdivision process. Basically, since the towns had the zoning permit and the site plans in our hands since April, myself and my predecessor have conducted extensive reviews of the site plan and made sure everything's compliant with town code. That's everything from landscaping to the new corridor overlay district architectural standards. Water, sewer availability, obviously the building setbacks for the general business zoning district, parking, etc. And so I'm happy to say that as presented tonight, everything is compliant with town zoning requirements, and both with the proposed subdivision plat with the town subdivision requirements. I did just want to highlight that the property is currently zoned general business, which again allows this type of development by right, but our new comprehensive plan, which I'm going to usually chime in about regularly to this board since it is new and an important planning document, does identify this property as within the community center district in our future land use map, which this district is described as promoting a mix of uses to include commercial, residential, industrial, and agricultural. So it's staff's opinion that this development fits in with that identified use. So I'll cut to the chase. Staff's recommending approval of the Pardee Partners subdivision plat and development plan as submitted. Everything's compliant with our ordinances per my reviews. And I'm happy to entertain any questions. The applicant's here as well to entertain any questions.
I have one question. What about the ingress and egress? Will it be on 280 only, where there will be another?
It's 280 only, and there is a North Carolina Department of Transportation driveway permit that's not in your packet. Usually we wait until site plan review approval, which again, because of the major subdivision falls to this board to sign off on that. But there is basically an approved driveway permit that DOT has concurred on.
Just out of curiosity, how many permanent staff does that facility plan to have?
Do you know? I don't think I have those numbers.
Permanent staff?
Why don't we just let you gentlemen come up, whoever might be able to answer those questions. Could either of you answer those questions?
I will just say in our parking matrix, we do some parking based on staffing levels. And so what I have in the site plan is that there will be 16 beds, 10 doctors, and 14 administrative staff, tech nurses, but I'm sure they can elaborate further.
So that's accurate. We base the parking off the number of employees that's required. So it's going to vary depending on the procedure, obviously, but 10 doctors are anticipated. And again, that's going to vary depending on the day and the procedure. and then 14 nurses, so approximately 24 employees at any given time.
So not a serious stress on the roadways around there.
No, not a serious stress. And if, you know, you base your trips on the square footage of the facility, Jeff will tell you that. And a 15,000 square foot facility gets you somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 trips a day or 22 in the peak hour. So not a serious constraint on the current proposed property there. One thing to point out to you guys, I've got a couple of exhibits, sorry, we're trying to position these, but you can see the yellow area is the property outline of 21 acres. And then the orange area is that's currently being subdivided. You've got a strip of roadway here, 50-foot right of way from the road to access the facility. And then the facility that sits on 3.31 acres. We did submit to the town of Mills River a master plan that shows potential future development on this portion of the parcel. We don't believe that this portion, because of the existing stream and the floodplain that's there, would be developable. This portion certainly would, which is why we are extending public sewer and water to serve this facility. So we have no idea what will be here. We just know it would be something in the future. And if those, traffic is a concern in the future, that would have to be studied at a future date if that was warranted. But at the current time, it's not warranted.
Do you anticipate those future development will be medically related though?
We do. Yes, we do, sir.
On the entrance there, I'm from a public safety background, but I'm just a little concerned about, the getting out into 280 north and south. I know. Okay, I know. Let's see, going north, it would be easy to pull out, but going south and trying to head toward the bar,
Mhm.
that could be a problem for us. Safety there without a lot of-
I think that could be something in the future that might be studied based on the number of trips and, different people pulling in and out. One thing to consider, as you know, you'll have to get a driveway permit. So if the district engineer determines that that's a safety concern, that's certainly that we'll, have to be obligated to meet those conditions for that driveway permit. But as it stands, he's not mentioned anything in regards to that. A signal would, I think, I don't know the exact warrants, I'm not a traffic engineer, but it would be much more traffic than what we're talking about here today to warrant a signal. We're about 1,100 feet from Jeffers Road. Yeah. There is a farm road. But we don't own that property and we don't have ingress or egress abilities to use that.
I did just want to chime in on one more thing. The town parking standards are based upon the projected staff, and so our required parking for this development is 22 spaces. Now they went above and beyond and provided 83 spaces, so I'm comfortable with the capacity of the development and parking lot for that type of use.
Does anyone else have any other questions you'd like to ask these gentlemen while we've got them? This is not a question, but I would like to say that I do appreciate the in-depth detail of what you've presented to us. You've come very prepared with a lot of extra additional information that we don't generally get at this point. So it's obviously obvious to me that you've thought through this, and I personally appreciate that. That is very helpful to me as we consider this. So thank you for doing that. Any other questions? Well, the planning board's role in this particular presentation tonight is that we can either approve the development plan and the subdivision plat as it is submitted to us, we can approve it with conditions placed on it, or we can table this for additional consideration for up to 60 days. So what would be the pleasure of you guys tonight?
I would make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve from Jim. We have a second by Jeff. All those in favor, if you would say so by aye. Aye. Any not in favor? Okay, so that passes unanimously 7-0. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for your time. I sat on the county planning board for 14 years, I think. So I know how much work it is to review all that stuff for nothing. So thank you for being willing to do that.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is text amendment TXT 21-07. Whoop. No, it's not. It is TXT 21-05, the conditional zoning introduction. And my understanding is this is not an item that we have to take any sort of action on tonight. It's simply an introduction to something that we will be considering further along. And Mike's going to do that for us as well.
Thanks. So yeah, we've been in discussions with council about conditional zoning and implementing it in the city. And we were directed by council at their August 12th meeting to actually begin drafting text for our code of ordinances to include conditional zoning in Mills River. So just a little background, conditional zoning is legal. So there's two types of rezoning. There's standard legislative rezonings done by town council, which obviously come with a recommendation from the planning board, where you can change your zoning from one of our standard listed districts in the zoning code. Obviously, every district has a list of permitted uses. Now, the difference between that and the conditional zone district is a conditional rezoning is to rezoning property for a specific use, which can include a site plan for that particular property. So it's really meant to tailor the town's development regulations to a use or site plan or some proposed development that doesn't neatly fit within our code. I included a little bit of background, both the 160D text that basically shows this is legal in the state of North Carolina, and a School of Government article that describes it in a little further detail. So again, we're just presenting this information, again, as information from the board, let you know that I will be drafting this behind the scenes and that we plan to bring this type of a text amendment to you in the future. There will be limitations that we're going to look to put in place for conditional zoning districts. You know, we don't want to kind of open the floodgates for everyone to submit a conditional zoning for their property. So we're looking at things like parcel size, dwelling units, density, that kind of stuff. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Nothing yet? Gonna wait for some language before we drill him with the ins and outs.
I'll say I'm glad to see it. I think it's a useful tool. So I'm excited about this. So thanks.
Okay, I presume that's all we've got for that tonight. Fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to move on to text amendment TXT-21-07, which is modify citizen initiated text amendment process. And this is another issue, I believe, that came from town council. It was directed to look at this particular process as well. So back at you, Mike.
Thanks. So in this staff report, we actually have attached the draft text for the new ordinance. So again, at the same council meeting, August 12th, we were directed to basically modify the text amendment process to create a new process for citizen initiated or Mills River property owner initiated text amendments. So basically council wanted potential applicants to come before them first in a pre-application conference, similar to what we're doing with the multifamily developers tonight, and basically determine whether council would even be amenable to that type of regulation change. Again, text amendments, changing the regulations for that zoning district across the whole town. The thought is that with the applicant coming to council before submitting a fee application and us going through public notice requirements and bringing it to you all, that for text amendments the council was not amenable to, it would basically save staff time, applicant fees, and eliminate some of that duplication. So a few things I wanted to highlight just in the text itself. I just like to go through and highlight some of the major changes. I'll just go based on the line numbers here because it looks like the page numbers may have dropped off. So line 5075, I just highlighted again. We're putting in here, and I put it in multiple times, that town council has the ultimate decision authority to allow or deny the property owner initiated text amendment to continue through the amendment process. So only upon positive direction from town council can the Mills River property owner move forward, submit an application, and then staff would basically move them through the standard amendment process. So that's the main change, is that instead of them submitting an application at the front, we're including this pre-application meeting and coordination with me, the zoning administrator, to bring it to council for consideration at the front end. Anytime, I'm just going to come out with this now, anytime I go through the zoning code, I'm going to be looking for errors, clarifications in language to improve the code. And also, although we did update everything to be 160D compliant with the new state land use law, there are some minute things that sometimes get missed. And so some of those other changes you'll see in here with the red line text or my blue additions are that exactly. So on like line 5108, the new section on down zoning, that's a 160D change. I believe we have it somewhere else in our code. But again, when initiating a text amendment or a zoning map amendment or rezoning, it's important to have that information at the forefront. So that's one change. And then the next section I wanted to bring to your attention is line 5155. It's the part on planning board action, which is section 154.198. And the major change here is that this board's always operated that the board has 45 days after first considering an application to make a decision. And if you need to table for additional consideration, you could basically double that to 90 days. That's not compliant with state land use law. State land use law says the planning board has 30 days to make a decision. And basically no matter what, once that period expires, council can act any way they want after that point. So I've made that correction. Again, it's not to limit your decision-making period. It's just bringing it in compliance with chapter 160D. And then even though it's beyond the allowed timeline, I did, if the planning board does want to table it, I did double that 30 days to 60, just like we had with the 45 and 90, and basically say that if you want more time for additional consideration, you need to get permission from council. Because again, per state law, they can act after 30 days if this board doesn't take action or make a decision. So I just wanted to include something in there. So if this board does feel it needs additional time for consideration, there is a way to do that. Those are the main items I wanted to highlight. There's a statement of consistency at the back. Staff's recommending approval just based on consistency with these elements of the comprehensive plan, basically updating the code of ordinances and having clearly defined processes for development review. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so again, our role tonight is to either recommend approval of the request, recommend approval with modifications. We can table it for additional consideration, or we can recommend denial of the request. I think I am in support of this request. Of course, it came from council and we are just recommending to them. So take that for what it is. But we have had some situations even recently where it would have saved some time if this step had taken place first. If they had gone to council first and got a feeling for the pleasure of council, it would have saved a little bit of time and a few steps. So I definitely think this is a good thing. Any other discussion?
I agree.
Okay, well, if there's no more discussion, would anyone like to make a motion? Well, we got to have a motion first.
And
I'll
just-
make a motion then that we approve this.
Okay, so Jeff has recommended recommended approval of the request. Mr. Oliver, you're going to go through with your second of that motion. And Mr. Oliver is going to second that motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the planning board is recommending approval of the request with a vote of 7-0. And now does the statement of consistency, does that require a motion?
You could either adopt it all together in one motion, doing the recommendation and adopting the statement of
Okay.
consistency, or you can separate it. It's the board's pleasure. So at this point, since you've made
Since
one
we already
motion for
did-
the recommendation,
We'll
you're
do a
welcome to
motion
do
on
that.
this, and moving forward, we'll try and tie that all together. Okay. So there's so much stuff here. Okay. I am going to make the motion that we recommend approval of this statement of consistency, that approval of this text amendment is consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan, specifically objective 1.4, policy 1.43, and policy 1.45, as well as objective 1.5. Oh, we got a second by Heath. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Phew, that was a mouthful. Okay. Very good. Thank you. I presume you have the master that I can sign later. Okay. Okay, our next order of business is text amendment TXT 21-08, which is the planning board composition. And this one we're going to toss over to Daniel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you this evening is another request of town council for a text amendment to town code. Really, this is a step to make their recent decision official, if you will. Earlier this year, council paused all appointments and reappointments to all of its boards and committees in an effort to review all of their boards and committees to make sure that the volunteers were being used in the most efficient way, and the town had enough. The town had the appropriate people on each board. And so over the last several months, they've been just debating this a little bit. And in June, they made the decision to reduce the number of members on the planning board from 9 to 7. And this brings the planning board in line with the rest of the town boards. Board of Adjustment technically has 5 voting members with 2 alternates. So it's a 7-member board. Parks and Recreation is now 7 members, and Planning Board is 7 members effectively, but the text doesn't reflect that just yet. So this staff report is very brief. All it says is that the council needs to change the code to comply with its own desires to reduce the number of people on the board. And similar to the report you saw from Mike just a moment ago, there's a few changes in this text that were right out of 160D. For example, line 13, 168-361 is the old reference. So those are just updated to reflect the new law. Under section 30.3, the board is reduced from 9 to 7 members. And the language was stricken there to remove the folks who were originally appointed for the board, as that has long since expired. And then the other 2 changes that are a little bit more significant are section C, line 43. the council decided in its board and rules of procedure for the planning board, excuse me, its charter, that the number of unexcused absences to drop from 3 to 2. And I say unexcused because, of course, people have things come up, weather is a concern. And as long as the chairperson is aware ahead of time, or the member communicates with the chairperson after the fact, the chairperson can excuse that absence. And then under section 30.4, line 49, you'll see the text that the board shall operate in accordance with the current version of the planning board charter and rules of procedure. And that particular document, as attachment C in your report, was part of the effort to review its existing boards and committees and make sure that everyone, the boards are performing efficiently. And one way to do that is to set up a charter and rules of procedure. Now, the planning board has had existing rules of procedure that are very generic, that the other boards were using in very similar fashion. But you'll see in attachment C, if there's a new charter and rules of procedure that was adopted by council on the 26th of August. Now, since that time, in rereading this, we found a couple of small typos and a couple of things that probably should be adjusted. For example, there is, I believe in here, it states that the board chair shall serve 1 term, but it doesn't recognize the vice chair and how long that person serves. So we should clarify that. Otherwise, that's it as far as the summary is concerned, and I'm happy to answer any question. And again, there is a statement of consistency with this one as well, as attachment B.
And one of the questions that you sort of addressed right then, and this is on, if you guys have your the charter and rules of procedure, this is page 5, article 7, section 2 is what he was referring to. It says the chairperson of the board will serve a 1-year term as chair, and that's where it doesn't say that the vice chair shall also serve a 1-year term. So that's stating that the term is 1 year, but there's nothing that indicates a limit of terms if you can serve more than 1 term. So I think that's perhaps something that we should either clarify or.
Yes, that's a question for the board. There was no, under the previous rules, limit to terms. In this charter and rules, as previously, the board chair and vice chair are elected each year and serve 1-year terms. So if the board feels that a term limit on that is prudent, then we can certainly put that in here.
So if there's no language in there for that, then there is no limit. Is
That's
that what
right.
you're saying?
That's
Okay,
right. Mhm.
that's really what my clarification was.
Okay.
One question on attachment C,
Mhm.
Article 5, section 2. I know we always enforce, so to speak, 3-minute limit on public comment.
Mhm.
But does this 3-minute limit apply to, like tonight, the gentleman are waiting to address us, I'm sure. But does this 3-minute limit apply to that? Or can we as a board vote to extend it if we think we need more time to get information?
That limit does not apply to the gentleman who were here earlier for Part D, for example. They're an agenda item, and that item can take as long as it needs to take.
Does not apply to the agenda. That was my question.
That's
yeah.
right. Mhm.
And one other thing under organizational meeting, we elect a chair and a vice chair on the first order of business. And I think we've been kind of slack, if I remember right, on adopting the schedule of meetings for the upcoming calendar year. We need to make sure we do that.
Yes, I agree.
And yes, we have been, and yes, we will do. And I made note of that as well.
One thing I would ask, going back to the 3-minute limit, or groups may appoint 1 spokesperson and will limit comments to 10 minutes. Would it be a good idea to define group, like maybe 3 or 4 I think Asheville does 3 or more
Mhm.
in a group. So the people in that group are waiving their right to speak by appointing a spokesperson. So
I think that's reasonable. Does 3 people work for a group for the board?
they do gain a minute that way.
True that. I was sitting here doing
Yeah,
my,
I'm
doing.
I'm doing some engineering over here.
So what, 3 or would be group 3 or more? Is that what
Say
you're
a
saying?
group of 3 or
Would be 3 or more.
may, and I don't know if it's probably not worth saying that those 3 then give up their right. And
Mhm.
so that's, someone has to write down, okay, you, what's your name? You, what's your name? You, what's your name? Okay, y'all will not speak. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, thanks.
Any other things you'd like to add to the discussion?
When do we make the decisions that you all were referring to?
Which decisions would,
So the changes that we just talked about,
Oh.
do we make a recommendation to approve with those
yes,
changes?
that's what you would do.
Okay,
This is written such that the planning board can amend its own rules of procedure.
and so does the text amendment and the charter go hand in hand?
No, there's 2 separate items.
2 separate things.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, you can amend the charter at any point. It just, so I just included it here because you hadn't seen it yet. And
Okay.
it was related to the subject of the board composition.
okay.
So I would suggest that we take a motion on the text amendment and then afterwards do the charter if you want to amend it tonight.
Yeah, I
Does it have to be written down that it's a group of 3 or more? Or is it something that we could state as part of the?
I think
I don't know.
you might as well include it in there, right?
Okay.
In the rules.
Okay. I was
Just
just
so
gonna
it's
say, if it's a big thing to rewrite, that if we could say, oh, by the way, a group is 3 or more without having to put it in, but having it in here helps, I'm
Mhm.
sure. So even after I brought it up, so.
Okay. Any additional discussion, conversation? It doesn't appear to me that any of the changes that we want are part of the text amendment, so I think we could have a motion on that at this time.
I'll motion.
Do you have that consistency statement in front of you that you could read when you make your motion?
Oh, well, I can make that whole thing there. Okay. Let's see there. See, I already filed it back behind. We are talking about TXT 21-08, correct?
Correct.
Madam Chair? Okay.
Correct.
All right. Oh, boy. Now I understand your position here. Pursuant to NCGS 160D-604D, when reviewing a proposed zoning text or map amendment, the planning board shall advise and comment on whether the proposed action is consistent with any comprehensive plan. The planning board shall provide a written recommendation to the governing board that addresses plan consistency and other matters as deemed appropriate. The Town of Mills River Planning Board finds that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the following elements of the town's Making Mills River 2040, I can't talk, comprehensive plan, I apologize, and recommends approval of text amendment TXT-2108. Do you want me to go on?
If you will just note those objectives and policies, I think that would be sufficient.
All right. Let's see. Objective 1.4, consistent and updated code of ordinances and zoning and land development regulations. Policy 1.4.1, maintain the code of ordinances to have a clearly defined statutory you want to help me narrow them out, I'll take my teacher here. Consistent-
Statutorily.
There you go. An objective set of development regulations. Objective 4.2, town government adequate facilities and quality services. Policy 4.2.2, provide town services at levels and quality of service to meet the administrative programmatic, project-related, and policy-focused needs of the community.
Take a breath. So we now have a motion
Yeah, there you go.
to approve that, and as well as its consistency with the Making Mills River comprehensive plan. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Second by
Thanks,
Ms.
Jen.
Second by Mr. Foster. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Again, that was a 7-0 vote for approval. Fantastic. For this, you have waited. So our final item of new business is a pre-application conference on the Jeffers Road multifamily developmental proposal. I think we are getting this in the correct order this time. So that's awesome. So the whole point tonight of having these gentlemen come to us is just to give us the lay of the land, so to speak, to kind of see what they're proposing, take any advanced questions, get a feel for, what our perspective would be, things that we think at this point might need to be addressed before they actually take this application before town council. So we're going to let Mike kind of give us a brief overview, and then we'll give questions, I think, we'll let you guys in just a minute introduce who you are, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you. So yeah, in mid-August, I met with the gentleman here from Long Branch Development about a multifamily proposal for the properties at 2211 and 2253 Jeffers Road. Obviously, pre-application conference with the planning board is required. And again, this is just for informal, non-binding feedback on the concept plan of development. The properties do have different zoning currently. One is mixed use, one's neighborhood commercial, but they both allow for multifamily developments. Together, they have a little over 35 acres. Our minimum lot size is 1.5 acres for multifamily. And our development requirements limit the density to 4 dwelling units per acre. And they're, again, with the concept plan coming under that a little bit by 3.85. Sorry, their proposal is 3.85 units per acre. The other thing I just wanted to highlight is multifamily developments are required to provide a minimum of 15% of common open space. And then there's breakouts of that specifically. And right now, based on their concept plan, they have a proposal of 45% of the site being open space, with some of it being used for active use trails. I'm going to bring up the Making Mills River comp plan again. So in our future land use map, it does identify this area and some surrounding areas of this property as the community center area in our future land use map. And again, desirable uses for this area for community center is civic and community uses, parks and public space, schools, retail, restaurants, offices, duplexes, townhomes, and apartments. So I'll let the developers come up and introduce themselves, talk about their vision, and again, the concept plan that was included in your packet, and we can open it for questions.
Okay, if you guys want to come up and just make sure that microphone is on so we can hear you.
Good evening. My name is Brett
Perfect.
Bassnight. I'm with Long Branch Development, and we have Brooks Engineering, John Kennard here. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I can see you all have the presentation that I shared with Mike. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about our proposal. We're working with the Franklin Family Trust on this property. As Mike mentioned, it's about 36 acres. And what we are proposing is a rental townhome development. So in terms of function, these are attached units. They are townhomes in every sense of the word, 2 stories maximum height with an attached garage on the front. A few of the precedent images that we shared in the presentation are projects that we have actually built, amenities that we have actually constructed around the southeast. And in terms of open space, every one of these townhomes will have a backyard. That's what we currently showed on the plan. And so our target demographic for this product type across the Southeast has been families. We see a tremendous amount of families that seek the functional space that really is not provided in a conventional apartment offering. A lot of our owners have pets and use their garages for parking as well as storage, as you can imagine. So from a parking standpoint, what we find that works is a parking space inside the garage, but also a tandem space outside the garage. Typically, we're parked at 2.5 to 3 spaces per unit, so there will not be a lack of parking on this project.
You must have been reading over my shoulder over the weekend. You answered most of my questions already. I have one other question, because I'm in favor of, and we've talked about this for many, many years. I've been on the planning board. We keep coming back with workforce housing. This is the term we used. Do you have any general idea of what the rental will be on these units at this point?
We actually have a couple case studies right down the road from you in Greenville, South Carolina, and Spartanburg, South Carolina. And the starting point there has been about $1,500 per unit, which is a very economical starting point. I mean, we're truly targeting the upper end of the middle income workforce space. So, these are fair market rentals, but what we see are a lot of working class families that choose these opportunities.
What would be the square footage of each unit?
They start at about 1,200 square feet, and that does not include the garage. So the garage can fit a full-size SUV in addition to that.
The 2-bath units?
They are. They are either a double master, so 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and then they have the option for a flex space that can be a 3rd bedroom on the 2nd floor.
So your master bedroom, everything you anticipate will be on the ground floor?
On the cottage unit, yes. On a 2-story townhome, the bedroom space will be on the 1st floor, and it'll be an open floor plan on the ground floor.
You be placing a community water system and with hydrants in that development?
Yes, that's correct. Water is out at Jeffers Road, so we'll be tapping into a public water system.
I have a question. Is our water system capable of accommodating this many additional people?
I believe that shouldn't be an issue, but
Yeah.
that is part of our due diligence. We're working to apply both the King Creek Sewage District and to the water suppliers to make sure they have capacity. And obviously, that's a very early thing that we do in the process.
Any recent floodplain issues in the property?
Not that I'm aware of.
So there is a small portion of the property that's in 100-year floodplain and 500-year
Yeah, there's a
floodplain.
small corner of it. We'll stay away from that.
Gotcha.
Have
And
you talked at all with any property owners around? Do you anticipate any problems?
We've actually heard support from a few, and so it's been very preliminary. We expect to be in touch with them in the next few weeks as we make the formal application. But a lot of the property owners on Jeffers Road need the extension of the utility lines, which of course we will be bringing to our property. So I think it truly is good for the neighborhood.
So no public hearings yet?
No, sir.
would this require a traffic impact analysis?
I don't believe so. I'll double check on the code, but I believe TIAs are only required for major residential subdivisions. And since this is a multifamily townhome proposal, I think they fall outside of that.
I mean, it's not gonna, I'm not worried about you warning a traffic signal or anything like that.
Mhm.
Just throwing that out, just making sure, getting it on the record. Thanks.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, just thinking about traffic on that road. I also noticed a little ways down the road is a private school that's housed within the church that would be just past your entrance. And so at certain times of the day, you're going to have, they have no school buses or anything. So you have private individuals bringing kids to school and then taking them back away. So they're going to be a couple of times a day where it's going to be a little more dicey, I guess, getting in and out. So just something I think we all need to be aware of. And I would also ask, have you been in contact at all with the principal of Glen Marlowe Elementary, just to see how you're targeting families? So we're talking potentially 137 families being added to Glen Marlowe Elementary School District. So
Mhm. It's a great point. We have not yet, but that's something we'll absolutely follow up on.
I was gonna ask you about that. I have
Mhm.
neighbors whose kids go to Glen Marlowe, and that school is blowing up already.
Mhm.
And I mean, do they have the capacity to handle this many additional kids? Is there gonna have to be additional building done on the Glen Marlowe site to take care of this many more kids?
Through past conversations, we have had this raised as a concern, just so you know. And one of the things we admire among people in your shoes is a willingness to help provide a solution. Don't know what that looks like all the time, but we do, appreciate that, because whichever school's being affected right now in Henderson County and in our area we're at capacity. We are looking at, anytime we add a new subdivision, we are looking at trailer educations for these kids. And just as, a father, we understand that diminishes the quality of the education for the child. It's just a simple truth, kind of thing. And that's because of the environment, not because of the teachers who are trying their hardest. But so, anytime that can be considered, we appreciate that greatly. So
Is that west? Would that be west Henderson?
And I think that's, obviously it is not your job to provide schools and school buildings. And we get that. That's why I just would love for there to be a dialogue with the school system, so they are aware well in advance of what's coming, so that they can adequately prepare for that. And, again, that's not your job at the open dialogue. I would hope, that would be my suggestion in this, is that you very quickly in this process have a dialogue with John Hart, who's a principal at Glen Marlowe, and just let him know what you're thinking, and just see if there are any suggestions that he has and what his concerns might be.
Excellent. Thank
What
you
is
for
the time
recommendation.
frame? I mean, it's probably premature to get to that, but I'm just curious, because that area over there is a mess right now because of 26.
Mhm.
You can't get onto 26 going past Glen Marlowe. So, I mean, and we're talking 24, I think, before 26 is going to be finished.
it's the never-ending project.
That was wishful thinking. So.
It's a great question, and it's our intent to move forward as quickly as possible, quite frankly. I mean, Mike, can you give a quick overview of how you see the process going?
Yeah, I don't have the email up. I kind of laid out a timeline for the Long Branch team here. But obviously, there's a pre-application conference. We're getting that out of the way now. The next item would be for them to submit a formal major special use permit application, which I would then present to council. And then the planning board could continue, once all the engineered site plans are ready, with the formal review and recommendation. Once the planning board makes a recommendation, then the process begins in a quasi judicial evidentiary special use permit hearing with town council, where again, they'll take the planning board consideration into account, but primarily they're relying on the evidence presented into the evidentiary hearing record at that meeting. I think the last time we emailed, we were possibly targeting a town council meeting in late January. Does that ring a bell? I can't remember.
That sounds,
Yeah.
that sound about right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if this project gets approval and you get to move ahead from the time you turn over the first shovelful of dirt, and I know you can't, there's weather issues, there's right now supply
right.
issues of building materials, all those things. I get that. Best case scenario, what are you looking at having these units ready for folks?
Probably about 12 months, because of the way the community functions, we deliver it all at once. We do not
Okay.
plan on
You don't do
phasing
it
it.
in phases. Okay.
No, ma'am, it'll be professionally managed. We'll have staff 24/7 living at the property. That's typical for most communities. We typically have a courtesy officer also living on site in the event that, there are any EMS issues, for instance. So it's our full intent to move forward as quickly as possible through the process here in Mills River and begin construction, hopefully shortly thereafter, but I guess it depends on the engineering schedule.
Any additional questions for
Any
these?
issues with fires? The Mills River Volunteer Fire Department servicing that area, that increased load?
No, sir, not yet. But again, we have not reached out to them yet since we
I
haven't
don't-
made the formal
I
application.
don't think there's anything, I don't think they have a facility close over that, in that direction.
They're kind of in between. They have one next to Pepsi
Right, okay.
and yeah, I mean, kind of equidistance, but
Right.
right, there'll be a new one on 280 soon.
Yeah, I knew they were building. Yeah.
They're fast.
But I'm glad you brought up fire. All units will have the 2-hour firewall rating and the gap between every unit, just as any townhome would be built. So they'll follow through with the North Carolina IRC and be constructed according to the code.
One thing I might throw out there, just to consider, we can't require a traffic impact analysis. But if anyone has traffic concerns, it helps to have someone take a look and just say, here's what we're looking at for trip generation, just a technical memo, or at least have someone ready to answer questions. To me, it looks very straightforward. I don't foresee any issues, but sometimes just reaching out. Now I know you do that all the time, so it's something to think about.
I noticed you do have plans for like a clubhouse and swimming pool, and this particular sketch shows a preserve with trails. Are there any other things like recreational specific things that you plan, or are you primarily going to keep it more natural?
It's a great question. What we have found with this product type is that most of our residents enjoy the outdoor space more than they do kind of the grand clubhouses. So we'll focus on the pool, the hardscape surrounding the pool, grilling areas, and definitely a dog park. Our users are huge pet people, and you guys have a wonderful dog park out here. So I'm sure there'll be frequent visitors there as well. But addressing your point again, the backyard is key to the functionality of the space. And so a lot of folks like to grill in their backyards and enjoy essentially an experience they can't have in a standard rental. In some instances, yes. It really depends on the location of the building. Right now, we're not showing any on the conceptual plan, but we may do some fenced backyards.
Any additional questions? You're good. Okay, so obviously we're just giving just general feedback. We don't have any motions or anything, but what it sounds to me like is that, in my opinion, and you guys can disagree with me if you wish, you have that right, but I dare you. No. I mean, this fits into the area of town that our Making Mills River Comprehensive Plan would support this. There's accessibility to water and sewer, which has been an issue in the past. And of all the other places that perhaps this has been proposed, this seems like it would fill a need in Mills River in this particular area. So. Okay. So there you go. All right. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate the information and being prepared to answer all of our questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our new business. We are on to agenda item 8, additional items. My request again is that we have in our hands a hard copy of the comprehensive plan.
Working on it. Printer's backed up.
What? Okay. That would be helpful. So thank you. So does staff have any additional items for us tonight?
Just one thing, we talked about a couple of changes to the rules. Did you want to go ahead and adopt those changes? Defining a group as 3 and then correcting where we left out the vice chair.
I'm so sorry that I forgot that. I was just trying to, let's go back to that before we conclude. So we are going to be going back to the planning board composition issue, the charter and rules of procedure. And this actually would require a motion to make the changes that we talked about. Specifically, we talked about the time limit. So if we had a group of 3 or more people, they could choose a spokesperson and have a 10-minute span of time. That is one of the changes. We talked about clarifying that in addition to the chairperson, the vice chair also has a 1-year term, serves a 1-year term. Is there anything else that I'm missing? I did. I don't remember. Time flies when you're having fun. Okay, so shall we have a motion on that? Someone? Anyone?
I'll make a motion that we approve those changes.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and we have a second by Mr. Oliver. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we have passed those changes unanimously, 7-0. Any, yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I was curious. I know Jim had mentioned something about a schedule going forward. How far out in advance are we going to do an annual one, or we do a 6-month plan? What's the thought on that?
From what I read in this charter in our first meeting of January, we will elect
that
a chairperson, elect a vice chair, and then we will make, it appears to me, a tentative schedule for the upcoming year.
Okay, but we won't. do
Certainly we
anything
can
for
make,
the
and
remaining-
there are ways that we can, change and modify that as we go along, but that would be
I
what
just
we would
didn't
do
know
in
if we were
January.
Putting anything in place for the remainder of the
Gotcha.
year. So I appreciate it.
You don't want an unexcused absence, do you?
No.
Okay, anything else we need to talk about tonight? All right, it is the magic moment.
Motion, we adjourn.
Mr. Foster makes a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wiggins. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? You are adjourned. I will see you guys on October the 5th.